What were the biggest like whoopsie type moments now in reflection?
The biggest one was vetting your contractor properly.
Yep.
Because as much as our contractor was like, yeah, I can build a kitchen, I can build a bathroom, that is a lot different than building a legal secondary dwelling unit, because there is a lot of, you have to communicate with the city a lot. There's the permit process. There's the finesse of making the fire separation and doing that properly. Like there are so many little steps that go beyond just creating an apartment.
Problems are what? Problems are profits!
Welcome to another episode of the Problems or Profits podcast. My name is Rebecca Lynn Matheson, aka the Canadian Cottage Girl, and today I am joined by Cozy Homes Canada, and we've got Jeff and Dakota in the house. Jeff and Dakota recently came on our Wednesday webinar, and I really wanted to further the discussion on the podcast and break down some of their backstory a little bit more in depth and really get into the meat and potatoes of some of the challenges that they went through when they were first starting out in their investing journey. And I really wanted to share their story with you guys. So first of all, welcome to the podcast, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We're very excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into the warm-up questions, I just want to break down a little bit about what problems or profits means to me. So this kind of mantra, this philosophy of problems or profits, it really is a lifestyle and a decision and a way of going about any challenge or obstacle that comes your way. Oftentimes, whether it be as an investor, whether it be as a business owner, or even just your standard everyday life, there are always going to be things that pop up in your way, and you get to make the decision as to whether or not you're going to turn around and walk the other way or absolutely charge through the problem and find a way to fail forward and find a way to absolutely take learnings out of every single thing that happens and find a solution to the problems that are at foot. I think it's a really good mantra to live by in business and in life, and that's what it's all about here. So really excited to have you guys on here. So first we'll start with a warm-up question, and since there's two of you, we'll have each of you answer on your own accord and kind of show from your own perspective. But the first question is, what is the most expensive thing that you have ever broken?
I can take this one first.
Yeah.
When I was 17, I totaled my mom's Camry.
Oh no!
Flipped it into the ditch.
Yeah.
Everybody was okay. Nobody got hurt, but it was.
Yeah.
I think that was the most expensive thing that I've broken.
Oh man!
The car was the only thing that was injured.
Yeah, on my 17th.
That's good.
Too.
Yeah.
Oh, on your birthday?
Yeah.
Checks out.
I'm sure your mom was real happy with you.
Oh yeah.
I haven't really, I should knock on wood, but I haven't really broken anything super expensive. The only thing that comes to mind is when I was very young, toddler, I was a very delicate child. And I guess I was at my great aunt's house, and she had these very precious, delicate, like egg ornaments. And I guess my mom tells you the story because I don't remember it, but I guess I grabbed one, and my mom thought it would be okay because I'm a very delicate person, and I just crushed it in my hand. So I think that's probably the most like precious, delicate, maybe expensive thing I've broken. So yeah.
It's so crazy how some of those little things, those little moments, and these both sound like stories from when you were younger too, but they're still so prominent. It is crazy how we remember those little things when we were growing up. But I always love hearing the response to it. People either take it one of two ways. Like I've actually heard a lot of people have totaled cars. It's actually so wild. But I definitely appreciate that, guys. So next form of question here for you is, if you had $1 million, that $1 million would disappear after 24 hours. What would you spend it on in that time?
Can we invest it in real estate?
For sure, yeah. But you only have 24 hours to do it.
I like that idea, and actually, Dakota, I think you had a good answer with
Yeah.
that.
So something that Jeff and I want to get into in the future is investing in Airbnbs. And I'm actually from Northwestern Ontario, so my family is still in Kenora and Thunder Bay. So eventually, what we want to do is get an Airbnb, at least one in both of those cities, so that we're able to go back, visit my family for longer periods of time, and then still have that as an investment property when we're not there. So I guess you could probably actually buy 2 properties pretty easily in those areas. And thankfully, with it being like I'm assuming like a free $1 million, if you make a couple of mistakes along the way, that's okay. But that would probably be what I would want to look at, was get that dream, something that would be a reality. So yeah, I think that's what I would do. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great investment.
Yeah.
Kenora's an amazing place to invest, I think, especially for short term. So there's a lot of money that flows through there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Kenora is beautiful too. I drove across Canada last summer, and I remember Kenora very distinctively, going to the Hungry Pug Cafe and then the Boathouse restaurant down by the
Nice.
water, and their Caesars are unreal, but that's another story. In Kenora though, there are deer everywhere for anyone who hasn't been there, and there was just somebody had a lavender tree on their property, and we drove by and there was just a deer on the property just eating lavender so casually. That's not something you see every day. But in Kenora, evidently it is. So it's a beautiful spot.
I think it's very common for deer to like walk up to your front window or walk up to your door. Like even if you're in what looks like a very well-populated area of the town, it's very common. So it's
absolutely
always interesting.
I think an Airbnb down that way would be so cool. And Airbnbs right now, there's just so much opportunity for that lifestyle blend, right? Where you can have the flexibility that you can't have with a long-term tenant. If you have a long-term tenant in there, you can't just like show up, turn up at their door and be like, hey, I'm going to camp out tonight. Like you just can't do that. Yeah, exactly. So if you have a short-term rental business running out of the places where you have family or friends, or where you just like going, then you can go there at your leisure, because you just block that time off in the Airbnb calendar and then book it the rest of the time. So I think that sort of lifestyle blend business is going to become a lot more popular. And I think we've already seen that through 2021. So I can only foresee that happening more in 2022. So that's very exciting. Final question here for the warm-up side of things is just, what makes you you?
That's quite the warm-up question.
We're diving in.
Myself, I'm very analytical, and so I'm into the spreadsheets and that kind of thing, and just making sure that there's processes and systems in place and that things can just flow and it makes sense. So that kind of sums me up. If I want something, then being analytical helps me get there, I find.
Right.
And
I generally, if I want something, I do everything I can to go out and get it. So I think that kind of sums me up pretty well.
Yeah. And it's funny because I feel like I'm always bringing stuff back to real estate, because that's why I'm different than Jeff in that way, where I am like, I'm analytical in some ways, but Jeff like really likes to set out his processes and likes to do a lot of research and make sure that like all ducks are in a row. Whereas I'm like I don't want to say like larger than life, but I'm like the dreamer and the like, let's push forward. Let's just go for it. Let's do it. So that's where we get like a very good like balance in our business. I like, even when I was a kid, I would have a lemonade stand, but if I got bored with lemonade, I was selling something else. Like I was like picking flowers out of my mom's garden and selling books. Like I don't think my mom was super happy about it, but I was on the side of the road selling like anything that I could find. And I've always wanted to like do something where I could help people and do something where it was not like, I don't know, I had this like vision of not doing like the standard job. So I've always had these like, you know, like big visions, big push. So it it balances nicely with Jeff because I'm the push forward and Jeff is the like, okay, but let's think about this for a
Stay
second.
grounded for a minute.
Yeah. So it's a good balance between the two of us. So I think personally and from like a business sense, even that's kind of who we are.
Yeah, I love that. I think having that balance in your business and also just being aware of who you are and what your strengths are is good because both of those things are important in business and it's okay if one side of that is your strength, but balancing that out with someone who is like more analytical, balancing that with somebody who is a little bit more drive, go, 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 move fast and break things. I think it's important to have both those elements. So that actually blends really well into the next thing that I'd love for you guys just to introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your business, talk a little bit about how you came to be in that business and just a little bit more background about yourselves.
You should probably start that out because you were the one who got us into this.
You got us here.
Yeah.
I mean, background, I've just always been technology driven. I was in IT, went to school for IT, just that kind of, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to be when you grow up? That kind of thing. I was just always good with computers. So just naturally kind of drawn to that. And then I've always known there was wealth to be made in real estate. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't think it was something that I could really afford. I knew that I bought my own house, but that was just like personal residence. But then just doing some research, reading some good books, I realized, wow, you can actually make a business out of this, and you can really, really go places with that. So that's kind of where it all started. Dakota was just kind of there beside me this whole time.
So Jeff, I don't want to say drag me, got me to come to a weekend.
I mean, Scott
seminar.
McGilvery was there, so that's why you went.
Yeah, I went to meet Scott McGilvery, and that was my only real intention for the seminar.
Yeah.
I've always been kind of a science nerd, and I was in medicine, and I liked my job, so I didn't really have any, thoughts on steering away from that. But I went to the seminar to meet Scott McGilvery. Thankfully, I actually learned something at the seminar and didn't just meet Scott McGilvery. And just really, I got it, right? Like sometimes you go to those seminars, you're like, I get it. Like I understand why people do this. And I understand that you don't have to be rich just like to get into real estate. Like you can be your average person and get into real estate. So I think after that, I really understood the power of the potential of investing in real estate. And that's where like the wheels started turning after that. So that's what kind of propelled us forward to start wanting to get into real estate investing. And then, we've made a lot of discoveries since then. That was about three years ago now.
Yep.
Probably. And it's really accelerated since then.
I love that. And I think that, everyone has some sort of spark or aha moment when they get into a business. And it actually sounds like for you, Dakota, it kind of actually started when you were a kid and realized that people would give you money for things if you sold them the things.
Yeah.
Like from the standpoint of like picking flowers in your mom's garden to selling lemonade, like that is very entrepreneurial from a young age. So sometimes you just need those sparks and to see somebody else doing it and to realize that, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. Hey, if these like normal, everyday, average people are succeeding, like, hey, that's me. I can do that too. So I really appreciate the context there behind how you actually moved forward into this. So let's talk through the first project and how you actually really evolved into this business, because that starting point, I think, is important.
It is, and that is it's actually a pretty good story. So after we started to really understand that it is something that we can get into, we were drawn to secondary dwelling units, or basically taking a bungalow and making a legal apartment in the basement of it. So having 2 units out of a bungalow. So we ended up finding one that we could convert, living in the upper half of it, and we hired a contractor to build out an apartment in the basement. That was a big learning curve. We didn't know all of the legalities behind it, going through the whole permit process with the city. We just kind of dove in head first and dealt with things as they came up. When we vetted the contractor, we asked very basic questions because we didn't really know what to ask. But we asked if he was able to build an apartment in a basement, and he said yes. Not knowing the permit process and everything and how to do proper fire separation and everything like that. So we ended up running into a few speed bumps, but we powered through it, and we made sure that everything was up to code for the city, and they were happy, and they came through and did all of the inspections and everything, and we ended up with a good product in the end. But it took a year and a half to finish that project. To put that into context, we have one that's ongoing right now, and the contractor, who's very familiar with the whole process of creating a legal unit, says it'll be done in 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
So
big difference.
Big difference.
It was a tough process. I think thankfully we were living so we were house hacking during it. So I think both of us have talked about it afterwards, and we're so thankful that we were house hacking while the project was going on, because we weren't having to, handle 2 mortgages and pay our own mortgage and pay the mortgage on this other one that, for a year and a half wasn't having any income. Plus we're, paying for renovations and that kind of stuff. So we were very lucky to be house hacking during it. And I think we knew that the process was taking a long time. It got to a point, I think we were probably about half or 3/4 of the way through. And we were like, okay, we're going to do this legalization thing? Like, we're going to push this forward, because this is a really long process and this is really difficult. But we knew that we wanted to have a good product at the end, and we didn't want to cut corners. And we knew if this was going to be our first project, we wanted to do it right. So yeah, we did it right. It took a long time, but we got through it. And like Jeff said, we learned so much during it. And I think we look back now, especially we have a coach now that has taught us a lot about what we should have done during that process. So even looking back, you're like, wow, you did that, and you pushed that forward, or that was a good idea at that time. But I think that's a part of it, right? Like, you have to learn some way. And we were just lucky that we were house hacking during it.
Yeah, you pay for education one way or another. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. And frankly, like, that's actually a really good way to learn is just getting into a project and having that fail safe too of living in it is great because it's your space where you're actually actively living, and then you can have the project going on at the same time. And it's not like you have tenants upstairs that are complaining all of the time where you have a renovation crew. Like, you guys are actively like opting into living in the space where it's a construction project. And I think that is a positive thing in terms of going through those lessons. So what were the biggest takeaways for you, or what were the biggest like whoopsie type moments now in reflection?
The biggest one was vetting your contractor properly.
Yep.
Because as much as our contractor was like, yeah, I can build a kitchen, I can build a bathroom, that is a lot different than building a legal secondary dwelling unit, because there is a lot of, you have to communicate with the city a lot. There's the permit process. There's the finesse of making the fire separation and doing that properly. Like, there are so many little steps that go beyond just creating an apartment. Yeah. So making sure that you're vetting the contractor properly and making sure that they actually understand what goes into creating a secondary dwelling unit. And I think that for me was the biggest learning piece. And now we have a long list of questions, and we actually interview our contractors pretty thoroughly. So we've changed our ways a little bit since then, I hope. But we have a bigger process now for vetting our contractors.
Yeah. And then building code interpretations can be different depending on just even the inspector that comes through. So somebody not only that understands how to do it, but has done it before, having that experience that goes a long way, because they've dealt with the city on these, and they've dealt with different inspectors, and have come across different interpretations that the inspector might have.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Did you have to go back and do more work after the inspector came through the first time?
Oh man, you have
There's
no idea.
a lot of work had to be redone.
Yeah, and we had
Oof.
two, and I think the piece where we learned this was we had a guy from the city, like the inspector, come through and said, you have to do these couple of things, and then we had them come back, but our original guy was on vacation, so they sent in
Mhm.
a different guy, and he was like, no, you need to do this and this. Drywall needs to go here. This isn't right. This isn't right. And when our original guy came back from vacation, he was like, I don't know why he told you this. This didn't need to be done. Like, you guys were fine. So there was that piece where we had, like, it wasn't a whole lot of money, but it was still a couple of $1,000s that we put into this extra. A lot of it was drywall. So I think we learned, like, having that consistency between the inspectors that are coming in is important, because there can be, like, I think the code is a little bit gray, so it's how you interpret it, and people interpret it a little bit differently. So yeah, that was fun.
Absolutely. Now, to go from that first story, and it sounds like there were a lot of lessons learned, and I love, love, love your point about you pay for education one way or the other, because I know you guys have since seeked out mentorship and actually leveraged the mentor's knowledge in a lot of your projects, and that's where you can compress time, and compressing time is so valuable, and there's a lot of people that don't quite understand this concept. So let's just talk through that a little bit more. So compressing time in a couple of ways. So number one, you've highlighted a legitimate example of compressing your time from your first project to your current project of a year and a half to literally 4 to 5 months. But that's not only time that you weren't able to get into your next project, time that you weren't able to refinance, time that you had your money tied up, more time to actually pay the contractors. So there is actually a lot that goes into that. And I really want to emphasize this point, because I think it is so important when we talk about leveraging other people's knowledge, that like you really understand what it means to compress your time, because that's a huge example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is, like, just the process. Like, they give you ways to create processes that allow you to compress that time, and just things like doing your proper due diligence, so you don't end up in a position where we were in, where we had a contractor that, I mean, his work was decent, but he just didn't know how to do that type of project. So we learned a lot of processes to make sure that your due diligence is done properly. I mean, we also learned about using other people's money, that was huge. And yeah, I think it was just understanding, like, they knew what to look out for, right? They've been through it.
Mhm.
They're, like, our coach is doing SDUs, like, to the extreme right now. So she knew what to look out for. She knew the processes that you had to go through, and she was really able to help us steer away from those problems that can cause projects to take a very long time.
Yeah. And to find find a mentor that's doing what you
Mhm.
want to be doing is crucial as well, because you get that additional experience that comes along with it, other than just guidance.
Yeah, someone who's actually in the field doing it, and like Jeff said, doing what you actually want to be doing. Because there's so many different areas of real estate that you can go into, and everyone has their own different expertise. So making sure that you find someone who's doing something similar to what you're interested in, it was
Absolutely.
a huge help. Like, we had one project that happened over almost a 2-year span. Like we said, that project took about a year and a half, and when everything was finalized, it was probably about 2 years.
Mhm.
And we've had 4 projects this year.
Yep.
5. So that's huge. And we just started with our coach at the beginning of the year. So there's so much you learn from mentorship, and it can really, like, propel your investing forward. It's, I mean, in any area of life, I guess, but for us, investing, it was huge difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely love that. And so you've started this brand, Cozy Homes Canada, and I think it's really cool when you can get to that point of actually creating a brand and creating a company from your investments. So let's talk a little bit about the process there and what, now that you've gotten through that 2-year project, what your focus is and what your goals are with your business and what you're actually trying to accomplish. We talked obviously in the intro a little bit about Airbnbs and some like potential goals and wishes there, but what is the main focus of the business as is?
The main focus right now is mostly around flips. We have an SDU on the go. We're still looking to see if we can find any other potential properties that would work well for an SDU. Pretty much anything that's value add is what we're looking for. So although we are interested in some buy and hold, we would want to be able to add value to those units rather than just buying something that's turnkey and ready to go. So we really like that Burr method.
Yeah. So originally we had wanted to do buy and hold. That was originally, we had no interest in doing flips. But we realized that flips, because they happen relatively quickly, they're exciting, people like to see them. So to be able to build our name, build the company, we thought flips would be a great way to start, just because they are exciting, they catch people's attention. The plan down the road is to do buy and hold. And I think the big thing, outside of just the real estate piece of it, is being able to help other, one of my big goals is to end up in coaching at some point. Probably the two of us together will coach in some capacity, because I would like to help people that are interested in real estate to get into it. So I would eventually like to coach, whether it's under our brand or however that ends up working out. And also that piece where you're able to help other people invest potentially passively in real estate. So for me, that the reason I got into medicine, which is my background, was because I wanted to help people. So I'm able to still help people in this realm as well. So once we kind of get our footing a little bit stronger, I'd like to help people get into real estate investing, and then also help people invest their money, even if they're not super rich, right? Because I think a lot of people have that misconception where they can't passively invest unless they have a whole bunch of money, which is not correct.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think a lot of people have these passions, or they get into these industries and they think that this is the only way, if they maybe like helping people, that they can do that. I definitely relate to that on so many levels, just coming from the fitness industry. I love working with people and helping them towards their goals. It is such a passion to see that spark lit in people when they're trying to accomplish something. And a lot of fitness goals are deeply personal, but so are a lot of investing and financial goals.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so cool to see that spark lit when somebody actually accomplishes the task that they've set out to do. And so I think that there's a lot that can be brought forth, and a lot of value that can be added from giving back and coaching. And I know you guys are based out of Ottawa, and you're wanting to expand up into that Northern Ontario space. And I think that there is actually a lot of opportunity. I've heard in being kind of in that cottage space myself, but I've heard a lot of people start to talk more and more about Northern Ontario and some of the opportunities that are there. A lot of the time right now, it's coming at a cheaper price point. There's certainly a trend coming out of COVID where people are wanting to get out of the cities. They can work remotely as long as they have an internet connection. Then working by a lake is all the better. So I think that there are a lot of trends. Now, given that not everyone has time to take down all of the potential projects or do everything all at once, you guys are kind of very focused right now on building the brand, building the business. What are some potential opportunities that you see in the market that maybe someday Dakota and Jeff will take care of, or right now it's just not quite working out for you guys, or maybe it's just going to be something down the road that you'd like to do, or something that a young entrepreneur just starting out might want to consider getting right into?
I think we do want to get back into what our original goal was and doing more buy and hold. And we like SDUs, but eventually we do want to get into some larger multifamily, bigger, bigger units. So that's always been something that we've wanted to do. Like I said, we switched gears a little bit and went into the flipping realm for now. But I think right off the bat, Jeff was looking at like a 7 or 8 unit with a commercial.
It was nine plex with a mixed use.
So we wanted to that was going to be our next step after the SDU, but like we changed directions a little bit after that. But eventually we do want to get more into the buy and hold world and into the larger multifamily buy and hold world. Anything else?
I think, just getting into the multifamilies, I think is a great next step. And then I do want to get some more short-term, not some more. I want to get some short-term rentals under our belt and go down that route. So do like fully furnished, maybe some executive suites or something like that.
Yeah, it's tough in Ottawa because you can't actually Airbnb in Ottawa unless it's your own personal residence. So we're going to have to extend out of Ottawa, unfortunately. But like I said, Thunder Bay and Kenora are 2 places we're very, very interested in. But we just know we have to get out of Ottawa to do that.
It's interesting. I'm seeing actually that trending in a lot of cities lately is that legislation coming in with Airbnbs about you only being able to do it out of your personal residence. Ottawa has that. There are some places now. Sarnia, I believe, has that. Goderich. There's a lot of different cottage markets that are starting to pop up with that. There's definitely still a ton that don't have that, but it is an interesting trend that we're seeing it from some cities.
Yeah, you don't have to go too far outside of Ottawa to Rockland, for example, allows Airbnbs.
Yeah, I find it too bad because I know when Jeff and I travel, we stay in Airbnbs all the time. Yeah. That's our preferred place to stay over a hotel. So I find it too bad more from like a personal traveler perspective, but got to play by the rules. So.
Absolutely. I love staying in Airbnbs. I love all of the cute little niche ones. I think that there are a lot of opportunities in the Airbnb space, and it's just a very, very cool way to travel. You get the same out of a hotel, no matter where you are. But I like that Airbnb hosts will have like pamphlets and guides of like local things that are going on. They'll recommend their favorite cafe. And when it actually comes from just like someone who's in the area who understands the area, then it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to like Jeff's cafe that he recommends. Like that's going to be way better coffee than the one that I Google. So I actually love those little niche touches when traveling. And I think that you get to know the area a lot better by doing that type of accommodation. So absolutely. I also think that cities are going to have missed opportunities. I've heard some like people with the mindset that, they don't like having people coming and going beside them or the Airbnb parties. But I'm sure that happens, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, I've seen people be very respectful as guests in Airbnbs because you're rated. There is an accountability system built into the app where your host rates you on your cleanliness. They rate you on how you interacted with them, and you rate them as well. There is accountability within the app, and I think that as long as you're managing your business well, you can avoid some of those unintended consequences with bugging the neighbors. Also, just have a beer with your neighbors, make friends with them, work with them, instead of having this dichotomy of I have an Airbnb running and my neighbor is getting upset all the time. Get to know your neighbor and find ways that you can work with them. And I think that a lot can be accomplished that way for both parties.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully things will change, but we'll see.
For sure, guys. So last question here is For you, what problem would you say is going to be your biggest obstacle over the next year, and how are you going to turn it into a profit?
Ooh,
That's a really good question.
yeah. Our biggest problem. That's a very good question. I think one that does come to mind is something that we're working on pretty heavily right now, and I mentioned it earlier, is gathering investors. And I think that is tough when you're just starting out because people don't really know who you are. We just completed our first project. We have a lot that are on the go, but we have one that was just completed. So I think gaining the investors that are a little bit unsure about what exactly we're doing as we build a bit more throughout the next couple months, hopefully they'll see a bit more of what we're doing. So I think trying to educate people on being able to invest with us and what the benefits are of that will be sort of a barrier that we're going to be pushing through in the next year. And, obviously, having investors on your side and being able to put their money to work and invest in further properties is obviously going to turn a profit for everybody. So I think that's something that we're working on really hard right now. And that's why we're focusing so much on building the company and building our identity and showing people who we are, because a part of what we're doing is we want to have other people who are able to also build with us and also make money with us. So it's just showing people that and making them realize the opportunity that we have, that we can provide to them. So I think that is something that we're really pushing through right now. And I think so far it's going pretty well. And I think with more projects completed, then we'll really be able to push through that wall.
Mm-hmm. And competing with cryptocurrency is difficult as well.
Crypto.
Everybody wants to invest in crypto instead. So.
It seems, but I don't think real estate's going anywhere. Real estate's still a contact sport, and it's necessary. So I don't think that is a problem that is by any means unattainable for you guys. Like, keep putting your name out there, keep striving for it. And for anyone listening, make sure you follow along on the journey at Cozy Homes Canada on Instagram. These guys are absolutely crushing it, and they are putting out some pretty great content out of the Ottawa area. And if you heard anything from what they said today and just want to reach out and riff with these guys, they're fantastic. So make sure you reach out to both Jeff and Dakota at Cozy Homes Canada. And guys, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Well, guys, keep following along on the Problems or Profits podcast. We are getting close to 10,000 downloads. So make sure that you share this podcast with your friends here in season 2 and follow along on our journey at Problems or Profits on the Instagram account and on YouTube. And we will see you guys on the next one. Peace.